Welcome to Labor News at Work. Today's episode, and today is September 30th, 2024, focuses on a potential port strike in the East and Gulf Coast by the longshoremen. Who's involved? First, the International Longshoremen's Association, which represents 85,000 workers across the globe at 100 seaports with 200 local affiliates. Its reported membership is a little over 47,000. It's affiliated with the National AFL-CIO. Its counterpart is the United States Maritime Alliance, a nonprofit employer association of companies in the East and Gulf Coasts. The timeline. Negotiations were due to start around May the 13th, 2024 at the national level after local negotiations were in progress for some time. They stalled on June the 10th. The parties have essentially not been engaged in formal bargaining as we know it traditionally since that time. The issues in dispute. The parties are apparently far apart on wages, with the longshoremen requesting a 77% increase over the base rate of $39 an hour. They want to bring the base rate on the East and Gulf Coast more in line with what they are on the West Coast. And the other issue in dispute between the parties is the authority of the companies that are engaged in the business of longshoring and shipping to automate cranes, gates, and moving containers. There is evidence that U.S. ports are substantially behind some of their international competitors in terms of technology and the savings that accrue to that in terms of labor costs and other efficiencies. How much will a work stoppage cost? It's estimated that it could cost, according to one organization, $5 billion a day. Another projects that it'll be $4.5 to $7.5 billion every week, as long as it persists. How can a stalemate between the parties be broken? Well, first, the United States Maritime Alliance has requested that the National Labor Relations Board grant an injunction to temporarily prevent the union from striking. This, however, is unlikely to occur before the deadline of the negotiations, which is at midnight tonight, September the 30th, 2024. In addition, the Supreme Court has made it more challenging for the National Labor Relations Board to request such an injunction in the courts to grant it. You can look at this information on a recent Supreme Court decision to that effect. Another option for the parties is that they could request a mediator through the Federal Mediation Conciliation Service. They both need to agree on this. So far, that has not occurred. A third is that the president could declare a national emergency under the National Labor Relations Act, as amended by Taft-Hartley, which could end up invoking a 80-day cooling off period in which there would be no work stoppage as the parties attempt to resolve their differences. A further option to resolve the impasse would be high-level government officials from the White House, U.S. Department of Labor, and other agencies may offer to meet with the parties to facilitate discussions. In this particular case, the White House and other officials did meet with the representative of USMX on Friday, the 28th of September, in an attempt to try and facilitate an agreement. And the Secretary of Labor, the acting Secretary of Labor, did participate in trying to facilitate an agreement which occurred between the Pacific Maritime Association and the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, which represents the West Coast workers. They reached a settlement before a strike in their last rounds of negotiations last year. There have been selected work stoppages in the longshoring industry on the East Coast involving the International Longshoremen Union. Since 1993, there have been 4 or 5 of these. The last major coast-wide strike occurred in 1977, but there was a strike involving 2,500 workers in New York in 1988 through 1993, 1,200 workers in Philadelphia in 1996, 2,000 workers in Baltimore in 2013, and 2,000 workers in New York and New Jersey in 2016. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I will keep you updated on developments in this. It's not uncommon to have these kinds of disputes go to the wire, and it's not uncommon for the parties really not to talk to each other very much and rely on a test of wills or test of strength through a strike or a lockout in order to reach an agreement. There is bitterness between the parties, and I also suspect there are some internal dynamics going on one or more of the parties which are making it difficult to come to an agreement. The union in particular wants to make sure it gets an agreement that the members can ratify, and that may be difficult in its mind until it pushes the company as hard as possible, which necessitates, in this case, a strike. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to talking with you in future episodes.